Good morning. Today is Wednesday, May 13th, 2020. It is the 34th day of the Omer. So I want to confess to you that I did not think of this question that I'm going to pose to you until this past Shabbos. It didn't occur to me. But let me ask you this question. How are you keeping kosher now? How is anybody keeping kosher? Because keeping kosher requires hashgacha, requires supervision. Supervision requires a supervisor. That means a trained, independent person who is visiting places where the food is being prepared or the ingredients are being prepared to be able to ascertain and certify that in fact the food or the ingredient is kosher. And making those visits is a problem right now. So let's divide the subject into two categories. First, let's talk about local businesses that require supervision. So local businesses, let's say the local restaurants that are open for takeout, or the factories that are preparing food, some of them that are still open, preparing food that are local. So that requires a mashgiach to be able to go in. All right, that's not such that's a problem that perhaps is overcomable because it's possible to drive to these places or maybe even to walk to these places. Of course, you have to take precautions, social distancing, and wearing masks and etc. But that's probably doable. The financial part of it is probably very difficult because the restaurants that have to depend only on takeout for now are suffering terribly financially. How are they able to continue to afford the costs of supervision? And of course, the person who's coming in to supervise, that's their job also. They also need to make a livelihood. So that's a difficulty, but maybe that is possible. But what about when the place is distant? What about when it's a factory in a place like China? And in fact, many of the ingredients that we use, maybe even a majority of the ingredients that we use that are in the final ingredients of kosher food that we use, come from large plants very far removed from our location. A large portion of them come from China. And the truth is, just to take China as an example, without China, you would not have a whole lot of kosher food. And it may not be immediately obvious, but even restaurants that are preparing food, they're getting ingredients. And those ingredients are made of other ingredients. And a large portion of them come from some other place. Unless you're doing a fresh fruit and vegetable salad bar with no dressing, you are depending on ingredients that come from very far away, usually. And traveling to China and visiting factories in remote locations in China and all over the world is a problem. So how is anybody keeping kosher today? So the solution that is being used has in fact been used for a while, and it is a solution that is both helpful but also problematic. And the solution is virtual remote visits. So what that means is the mashgiach is at home, let's say, and he sets up a remote virtual visit with a counterpart in a factory anywhere in the world. And that is happening and has been happening regularly since the beginning of this crisis. So there are a number of things to consider with such a setup. Number one, in a place like China, you have to make sure that you have the right software, because China does not allow most social media, so they don't allow WhatsApp or Google or Facebook or Zoom. So you have to have WeChat or something that's available. Also, you have to make sure that the plant or factory has adequate Wi-Fi connection, which is not always the case. They have to allow phones on the floor or in the work area. They also have to allow photographic. Now, in general, the OU reports, and the OU has a gigantic footprint in China, and they are doing these visits now remotely from the mashgiach's home, usually in the U.S. So the OU reports that most of these companies are happy to accommodate that, but not all of them. Then the next thing you have to be careful about is, okay, so you have to have, so let's say I'm doing it here. I'm in Montreal. I have to have a contact in the plant who's willing to take a phone or a camera or a tablet, let's say, and walk around and show me from place to place so that I see with my own eyes what's going on there. Of course, you have to be a real expert in kashrus, especially of these kinds of plants, and you have to know the layout of the plant itself. Before coming to Montreal, in all the years before coming to Montreal, I worked part-time as a kashrus inspector for all of the major kashrus organizations in large plants, some of them quite remote, in Louisiana, in Connecticut. And so I have some experience with this kind of kashrus work, and you have to be very, very careful to check everything. You have to check the raw materials, all the storage areas, the warehouses. You have to check the production areas. You have to check the storage areas. You also have to check the packing areas because there's no telling where ingredients might be kept or things might be going on, and you have to know how many rooms there are and how many buildings there are to know that, in fact, you're being shown everything. You know, it's one thing if I'm walking down a hallway and I can say what's down this, what's through this door or what's down that hallway. But if you don't know, or there could be a separate building. If you don't know that in advance, you don't know to ask. One of the things that I learned, you have to also check the laboratories. Almost every food plant has R&D, research and development. They are constantly researching new formulations, new sources of ingredients. I've spoken about this another time. I'll just mention this briefly because it's a tremendous lesson. So for years, I supervised the plant, Mound's almond bar. So you may know it's a famous chocolate bar. It's a great chocolate bar. And the whole world supply is made only in one place, a plant in Connecticut. And they've been making the same two chocolate bars, one milk chocolate and one dark chocolate, one with almonds, one without. If you know the commercial, maybe from 30, 40 years ago, you may remember that. And same two products, same recipe, same ingredients for, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 years. And I'm visiting this plant. So, okay, I'm looking around as I'm supposed to do all these places. And I notice a door. And I say, what is that? He says, you don't have to worry about that. It's not really relevant. No, I have to see. What is it? R&D, research and development. So I said to him, the person who was showing me around the plant, I said, you've been making the same thing with the same, what are you researching? What are you developing? You haven't made anything new in 50 years since the plant's been open. Says, no, even still, Avalbigain, we're still always researching the possibility of new things. We're researching new suppliers, new forms of ingredients. We're always researching. It's a very important lesson just in general. But in terms of kashrus, there could very well be non-kosher ingredients that are coming into the lab, which could get mixed into the rest of the factory, but it doesn't show up on any inventory or in any list or any production schedule because it's not part of the production schedule. You have to check that. And very importantly, you have to check the documentation. You have to check the paperwork because it's not enough just to see what ingredients are there. You have to see what was ordered and be able to match the amounts with the documentation, because it could very well be, and I'm not just making this up, this in fact has happened, that a company could order, let's say, 100 pounds of something, but in the paperwork it shows that they ordered 100 pounds and it's kosher and it's fine, certified, it's fine, but the output shows that they're using 200 pounds of it. Well, where is it coming from? That might mean they're using another source that they're not showing you. Because again, you only see what they show you. So you have to be able to match the input and the output, the ingredients with the products, to be able to see. So you have to see all the documentation. So you have to really have a lot of specialized knowledge, and you have to keep current because things change all the time. Okay, so that's what's happening. In fact, as you can well imagine, many of the plants, the owners, are reporting that they like this very much, because this cuts down on the expenses, because you don't have to pay for someone to travel. They can just sit at home, and it costs virtually nothing to do this visit. And so it's a tremendous cost savings to the company. So the company says, wow, this is great. We're happy to do this. Maybe we can continue even after this is over. That's a big problem, because there's a shortcoming to all this. And the shortcoming to all this is, again, you only see what the camera is pointing at. You only see what they show you. Now, there could be a malicious problem where they're not showing you, let's say, a storage area, because it has an ingredient that's not supervised that they don't want you to see. So it could be malicious, but it could be completely inadvertent, because remember, the contact in the plant is not an expert in kashrus. And that person, he or she, may not know what is germane, what is relevant. And the truth is, potential problems can come up. It is not possible to anticipate all the potential problems that there could be. You have to actually see it. And you have to actually look and open every door and open every cabinet, open every drawer. And you can very well see a potential problem in an area where no one ever thought that there would be a problem, but you have to be able to see it. So I would say the problems in this kind of industrial kashrus usually occur where you do not expect them to occur. And inevitably, that is going to be a shortcoming of these kinds of remote visits. So this is less than ideal. And I worry about over-reliance on this strategy. However, something ominous happened on Monday. On Monday, the OU released a statement, and the advisory, a kashrus advisory, and the kashrus advisory says as follows: due to COVID-19, some companies are facing challenges producing OU certified products because of the inability to meet certain requirements. They don't specify what they are. It could be a variety of things. It could be getting the raw ingredients, but also could be related to supervision and being able to set up these remote visits. I don't know. I don't know that. As a result, the OU may be temporarily removed from packaging of these products. So then they say, rest assured, the OU will not appear on any product that doesn't meet the OU standards. Okay, very good. Then they say, and this is really important, practical for all of us, consumers should not rely on a product that they're familiar with. I've always bought this product. It always has an OU. What do I have to look for a symbol? I've been buying the same thing for years. You cannot rely on that, but rather you have to make sure to check that each package actually has the symbol that it's supposed to have, because especially in this time, it may be temporarily removed because they're not able temporarily to supervise it. And by the way, that's important advice all the time, to check the package for all symbols, and many people don't do that, and that's a problem at all times, but it's an even more serious problem now. So we rely on the major kashrus organizations to do what's necessary under these extraordinary circumstances to provide food that we need, but also at the same time to maintain the standards that are necessary. And that is a very difficult balance. So we rely on our kashrus organizations to make the right judgment calls, balancing the extraordinary circumstances and the requirements of halacha. But as this pandemic goes on, this will become more challenging. And especially getting back to normal after this is over. Because again, like I've spoken about in other contexts, you get used to a leniency or a less than ideal halachic situation. And now when it's over, like the plant managers say, well, why can't we rely on this all the time? And this is a problem with local supervision that is already going on, where there are the MK and others are starting to rely even locally to ease the financial burden on cameras that are posted in certain places, but they are less than ideal because the camera only sees what it's pointing at. The remote visit only sees what the camera is, what the person is showing them. So it's less than ideal. And we need to make sure that we are accommodating the extraordinary needs that are going on right now, but also that we are maintaining the standards that we need for kashrus and for every other area of halacha. So it's something to be concerned about, to be aware of, and certainly that we should be checking the packages. But that is how it is happening right now all over the world. That is how we're able to keep observing kashrus today. I wish you all a great day. Have a wonderful day. Have a kosher day. And I look forward to seeing you again soon.